Okay, so now we're going to look at the targeting methods that we've got available to us through the Facebook Power Editor. So there are three main targeting types. We're going to walk through each one in detail. We've got demographics, interests, and behaviors. And this is where your worksheet from Module 1 will come in really handy. If you've put together a good picture of what your perfect audience looks like, this is where you can really put that into play. Facebook gives us lots of demographic targeting options, and one that I want to talk about is location. So you can target people by country, state, city, zip, or postcode. Now, what you choose here is going to have a big impact on your overall cost per acquisition or cost per engagement. And that's because our big countries with big spending users, also known as tier 1 countries from an advertiser's perspective, are USA, Canada, the UK, and Australia, and they're going to be the most expensive because that's where the high value users are. That's where your users who are going to be most likely to spend money in your app are going to reside. So they're going to be the most expensive. Now, your goals and your ideal audience should be what dictate your choice of location targeting at this point, because it really depends on what your goal is as to where you should be targeting. So let's say your goal is to run a campaign that has a positive return on investment from a monetary perspective. Okay, so you want to be able to spend $1 per install and know that you'll make back $1.50, for example. Targeting countries where you can get really cheap installs, say 20 cents, isn't going to be effective in this case because the return on investment simply won't be there. The users in those countries are very unlikely to be spending $1.50 each on average within a mobile app. Okay, so you need to think about this. And this is something that I see so often. People, posting on forums or posting on Facebook or wherever, saying, oh, I can get you 15-cent installs or 20-cent installs or whatever. The truth is, that doesn't matter. Because if those users have zero value, or if those users don't actually help you achieve your goal, then it's irrelevant. Then that cost is meaningless. If, however, on the other hand, somebody said, I can get you users for $1, but I know they'll return at least $1.50 to $2 each because they'll be really high value users, then that's much better than the 20-cent users who are going to spend $0 in your app. So that's something to be really careful of. Now, not saying that there isn't a reason or there aren't reasons to target those cheaper audiences. For instance, if you just want to get some reviews, some feedback about a particular app so you can improve it before you do a big launch in some of the tier 1 countries, you might want to just run some cheap campaigns, get some cheap installs so you can build that user base, get some reviews, get some feedback, improve your app a little bit until you're happy, kind of like a soft launch, until you're ready for tier 1 countries. So in that case, then yeah, sure, cheap installs might be good. So like I said, consider your goals, consider what you're really trying to achieve with the campaign before you choose your targeting options. Now, that being said, once you've chosen the countries you want to target, then yeah, narrow down by state, city, zip, postcode, if that applies to your app. So now we're going to head over to the Power Editor and have a look at all of the demographic targeting options available to us. All right, here we are back in the Power Editor. And you can see I'm just on the Ad Sets tab, and we've got our previous ad set that we set up in the earlier module. So let's look at our settings here. Let's look at our demographic settings and start to set those up. At the moment, it's on all the default settings. So obviously we don't want to run the campaign like that. Now, if we look at audience, we hit edit audience. Now, first of all, we've got our location targeting. We won't worry about what's up here for the moment. You don't need to touch that right now. We'll look at our locations. That's the first thing. We've got Australia. So for this example, I'm going to add the US, the UK and Canada as well. And now we'll move on to age. Now you should be able to narrow this one down based on the information that you put together in that Module 1 worksheet. So narrow down your age as much as you can. For gender, this is really going to depend on your app, but I want you to think a little bit differently here. So rather than thinking about your app and which gender your app is for, because the reality is most apps are going to be for both men and women, think about this particular ad set. Now remember, within a campaign, we can have multiple ad sets, and each ad set can be targeted differently. So think about how you want to target this ad set. Now, I'm going to give you a quick example of how you might use this, and this is something that I actually see all the time in the Facebook newsfeed. Think about if you had a dating app, okay? Now, I would assume that most dating apps would want both men and women, okay? But rather than running one ad set and hoping the ads in there are going to appeal to both men and women, what those companies are actually doing who are advertising those apps, they're running two ad sets. You'd run one ad set targeted towards men, and within that ad set, you'd create ads that are specifically appealing to men. So I see this in my own Facebook newsfeed. All of the dating apps have ads with pictures of attractive young women. They've got descriptions like get more dates, blah, blah, blah. Everything that applies to a male audience. And that's because they've got an ad set targeted towards men, and that's why they're appearing in my Facebook newsfeed. Now, on the other hand, you then create a second ad set, except this second ad set will be targeted towards women. And the ads in that ad set would have completely different images and text. So the ads in that ad set, for example, they might have men with their shirts off and six packs and descriptions like find your perfect soulmate or something like that. So they'd be targeted completely differently for a female audience instead. So that's how you could use multiple ad sets within a campaign to target men and women and have way better results than if you just ran one ad set targeting both men and women with the same ads. So just something for you to think about there, something that can really make an ad campaign much more successful, much more effective. Now let's have a quick look at how you'd actually create multiple ad sets. It's quite easy. So we'll leave this one targeting women and we'll just hit save. And now to create our second ad set, all we have to do, because we're in the Power Editor, we can just duplicate the current ad set by clicking the duplicate button. Now it'll ask which campaign we want to use. We'll use the same campaign. And once we do that, the second ad set will be created directly beneath. It'll just have the same name with a 1 on the end. So what we'll do then is we'll rename the second ad set, and we'll take that off the end and we'll call it, we'll just put an M there for male, and we'll rename the first ad set as well, and we'll just put an F there. Take that away because it's unnecessary. You'll notice I haven't used exactly the same naming convention here because I've quickly set this up for the demo. But like I said, there's no right or wrong to set your naming convention anyway. Now back to our duplicated ad set, the new one. All we do then is when we're in our audience setup, we just set it to men and set up all our other demographic options. So we've got our two separate ad sets. Now you might be wanting to just run a $10 a day budget. So what's important here is now that you've got two ad sets, to stick to your budget, you will need to just go to your budget and make sure you split that in half if that's what you're looking to do. So now what's happening is we've got one ad set that can be targeted towards men, one ad set that can be targeted towards women, and we've split our $10 a day budget so that it's spending $5 a day on each ad set. Now we'll just head back into this one and we'll keep looking at the different demographic options. Now we can see we've got a whole list here. Now we can start by relationships. So, there's the simple stuff like interested in men and women. You can choose all that sort of thing. We can say whether they're married, single, engaged, heaps of options in there as well. You can also go down to education. So their level of education, so whether they're high school educated, college educated, fields of study, schools. So you can target a particular school. You want to target Harvard for some reason, or Yale, or any other major school. And undergrad years, you can target by that as well. Now, next up, we've got work. So we can target by employer, job title, industry, and office type. So here's an interesting idea for you. And I have had discussions with app developers about this in the past. Now, if we choose employers, and we'll just switch back to all genders, we can type in anybody. So let's say we typed in Apple. So we could choose Apple as an employer. Now, why would you consider doing this? And the reason that this particular developer that I was speaking to was interested in targeting Apple employees was because he had an app coming out, and on release, he wanted to run an ad campaign and put it in front of Apple employees who worked as category managers for the App Store. And the reason was pretty simple. He was hoping that by putting these ads for his app in front of the people in charge of the different categories in the App Store, he could hopefully get noticed by them and get his app featured on the front page of the App Store. It just shows the power of what you can do with this. So start to think outside the box, start to get really creative, and things like that can be really interesting. We can also look at job titles, industries, office type as well. Financial, we can target by income, by net worth. Home type, so whether they're in a house, an apartment, anything like that. Home ownership, so if we go and look at this one, we've got first home buyers, homeowners, renters. You can even target by those options. And we can even look at the home composition. So whether there are children in the home, whether they're empty nesters, grandparents, new parents, heaps of things. Now we've got down here young and hip. So as you can see, Facebook come up with their own little descriptions for different groups of people. Often you can move across to the right here and you'll see a description of what they actually mean when they say young and hip. This one isn't very helpful though. We've got people whose activities strongly suggest they are young and hip. So not a really useful description there, but a lot of these, it does help if you look at the description, if you're a bit unsure of what the actual targeting option means. We've got ethnic affinity, generation, so that's if you want to target, say, Gen X, baby boomers, things like that, your millennials. Parents, so you might want to just target new mothers, or parents. Politics, so if there's anyone with a particular political preference that you want to target, that's where you do it. And then life events is an interesting one as well. So you could target people who've had an anniversary within 30 days, who live away from home, new job, new relationships, just married, upcoming birthdays even. So heaps of different demographic targeting options available to use. So what I want you to do is go back, look at the worksheet from Module 1 and apply it to your targeting options here. Now, something to note before we do this, you'll see at the top we've got potential reach, 117 million people. Okay, that's how many people your ads can possibly reach based on the targeting options you've put in. Now, watch what happens as I start to narrow this down. So if we go 18 to 20 years old, okay, now we're only down to 13 million people. And if I say baby boomers, okay, we're down to 70 people. Why? Because the age and the generation, they just don't match. So the point is, if we go millennials, we'll get a much better number. Okay, so we're down to 12 million. And if we say people who've got an anniversary within 30 days, we're down to about 85,000 people. So the point I'm trying to make is try to keep an eye on your potential audience and get it down, but make sure it's not too narrow. And what I mean by too narrow is I will generally target between 500,000 and 1 million people. But if I'm getting super specific, then I will go smaller than that and I'll go to anywhere down to around 100,000 people, but these aren't fixed numbers. I'm just giving them to you as a guideline. Okay, so that's all for our demographic targeting. I'll see you in the next video.